was a posting of a blog, or more strictly speaking, a vlog by Ergin House. This is a bit of a plug, www.erginhouse.org. And the blog was written by Subhadra, who wrote a biography of Dhardo Rimpoche called The Wheel and the Diamond, which is certainly worth a read. You get a lot of detail about Dhardo Rinpoche's life and the sort of training that he undertook in the monastic traditions in Tibet, and an extraordinary individual. But the footage of Dhardo Rinpoche talking about his friendship with Bhante, and Bhante talking about his friendship with Dhardo Rinpoche, is very touching, very moving, and I'd recommend everybody watch it if you haven't already. So that's on the erginhouse.org website. So when I watched that this week, I was, as I say, thrown off the talk that I'd sort of worked up, and I'm happy to sort of do that, because I think points, or some of the things that really struck me from that video, are worth at least sharing here under that title, Live United, which is of course the middle statement and the motto from the Indo-Tibetan Buddhist Cultural Institute School in Kalimpong, where Bhante spent, I guess, probably almost 15 years in the 50s and early 60s. So that footage of Dhardo Rinpoche talking about Bhante and his association with Bhante was done in the late 80s by an order member called Naga Bodhi, interviewing Dhardo Rinpoche, and it was only a few years before his death in 1990. I think Dhardo Rinpoche died at the age of 73. And of course, he was one of Bhante's main teachers, wasn't he? He was a Rinpoche, a precious one, which traditionally means that he could direct his rebirth back into our samsaric realm to help us all achieve, or at least a degree of awakening, if not full awakening. So he came back for our sake, so the tradition says. And actually, Bhante regarded Dhardo Rinpoche as a living bodhisattva. And coming from Bhante, we have to take that quite seriously. And given that he would have spent a decade in close association with Dhardo Rinpoche, that's quite a statement. He regarded Dhardo Rinpoche as a living bodhisattva. So I was thinking about that. I was thinking about their association and what comes off the video, this extraordinary, I mean, with Dhardo Rinpoche, this atmosphere of real, almost love in a way, and appreciation that comes off. It obviously meant a lot to him, that association, that friendship, if you like, with Bhante. And I say friendship because I suppose we can take for granted that, you know, that and friend of Dhardo Rinpoche, actually from the traditional perspective, to be a teacher doesn't necessarily mean, at least in the Tibetan tradition, that you're also a friend, you know, or indeed a close friend. That wouldn't necessarily be a given, but that's what it was. Bhante was a friend, became a friend. They developed a friendship, and in a way, you can tell that experience. For Bhante also, his friendship with someone like Dhardo Rinpoche no doubt informed his view on the value of friendship, particularly spiritual friendship. And I think we've inherited that understanding in our own movement. We owe, I think it would be fair to say, we probably owe our understanding of spiritual friendship, or at least the meaning and significance, well, also the practice of spiritual friendship, to Bhante. Even the idea of friendship, in a sense, being a spiritual path in its own right, I think that's probably fairly unique, as far as I know, to Triratna. That real underlining of the value, the appreciation of friendship. So Bhante, as he was wanted, keep talking about Bhante in the present because I dreamt about him last night and the night before. We were driving to Poland, of all places, in a big articulated truck en route to Krakow, to Sangaloka with supplies. And I was rather nervous because it was Bhante driving. So, oh dear. Anyway, yeah, Bhante, I think, as is his want, was to relate things to his own experience, to try and work out what this meant for his own spiritual life. And I think that's something that he took as a sort of modus operandi throughout his life. And no doubt the emphasis he puts on spiritual friendship was in part coming from that direct experience he had with his friendship with his own teachers and others, no doubt, including Dhardo Rimpoche. So we can often take friendship as a sort of normal part of human life. It's something we can take for granted, but at least in the Buddhist tradition, it has or can have a very profound value, Kalyana Mitrata. In a sense, we don't need to get too complex with how we frame it, because I always remember Bhante writing somewhere that he regarded friendship essentially as based on persons treating other persons as persons, or something like that. I'm paraphrasing. Persons treating each other as persons. I quite like that. It's so simple. It's just a direct expression of one's deep humanity. There's an active component there. You know, we don't just see people as people. We treat other people as people, and all that implies. Yeah, because so often we can treat people as an extension of ourselves, can't we? Our own desires or needs. So, you know, it's something that is something of an insight, and something of an insight, quite frankly, I think the world could do with at the moment there, in such uncertain and turbulent times. Persons treating each other as persons. Two things struck me in the video this week. Firstly, Dhardo Rimpoche says that his association with Bhante made him happy. And he repeated that a few times. Yeah. In fact, he said very happy. That's one of the things about friendship, isn't it? There's a delight in it. And no doubt Bhante was very happy with that association and that friendship. I think one of the things that he said in the video that said made him happy was that he knew that they both had a deep appreciation of the Dharma. Their friendship, in fact, he goes so far as to say their friendship was based on that mutual interest in the Dharma. And also, he seems to have been quite prescient, because it comes across in the video that he sort of, Dhardo Rimpoche implies that he understood that Bhante would come back to the West and teach the Dharma, and he thought that would be a very big boon, a very big benefit to the Dharma itself. So obviously that gave him joy, that made him happy, as you'd expect it would. The second thing that I thought was rather extraordinary was that, given Dhardo Rimpoche's training and spiritual attainment, if you like, certainly in terms of the monastic training, he probably got almost as high as you can get in that system, in terms of philosophical debate and study of the Dharma and the various traditions. But even given he says that he's talking about Bhante, his high level of motivation and dedication to the study of Buddhism encouraged and inspired me to study Buddhism even more seriously and in greater depth, which is quite extraordinary, I think. I don't know why that struck me so forcibly, but I thought with someone, you know, with Dhardo Rimpoche's stature, that he could be spurred on and inspired through that friendship to, you know, go back to the study of the Dharma and the practice of the Dharma in that way. So you get the impression that these two men, bear in mind Bhante was, I think when Dhardo Rimpoche saw him from a distance, he was only in his mid-20s. 24, 25, when they actually finally met in 1953, Bhante was only in his late 20s, and Dhardo Rimpoche was a mere 35 years old or something. So we're talking about relatively young men sharing quite a significant friendship. A friendship, so you get the impression that they really saw each other. They really, there was something there that went quite deep in the context of that sharing of their interest in the Dharma. And an appreciation of each other's qualities, definitely, and a delight, you can tell in the video, a delight of each other's qualities, which inevitably formed a lifelong friendship. And Bhante still kept in contact with them. I remember when we got news that Dhardo Rimpoche had died, and I could see how moved Bhante was by hearing that news. But this idea of friendship in the spiritual life reminds me of a statement which some of you may have heard, actually, because you see it reproduced quite often, a statement that Bhante gave, or it comes from a talk that Bhante gave to the Buddhists in Bombay called Why I Am a Buddhist. And it's, I think, something that I've always felt sort of underpins my own interest in a sense, provides a sort of foundation for my own ordination. Bhante says in Why I Am a Buddhist, this is one of the reasons why I am a Buddhist. I believe that humanity is basically one. I believe that it is possible for any human being to communicate with any other human being, to feel for any other human being, to be friends with any other human being. This is what I truly and deeply believe. This belief is part of my own experience. It is part of my own life. It is part of me. I cannot live without this belief. I would rather die than give it up. To me, to live means to practice this belief. To practice this belief. And I'm sure, well, as Harsha Prabhu said, it was very true. Bhante did practice what he preached in a very deep way. So that's a very powerful statement, isn't it? Not just a sort of an intellectual proposition that we can ponder. It touches something very true and real, I think, in terms of the human condition, particularly when people suffer so much from a sense of isolation and separation and a lack of meaning. We're profoundly social animals, and you know, friendship and connection with people, elevated to that degree, is a profound thing, I think. And there may be cynics that would say, well, Bhante's a bit naive in that respect, as cynics would. Or Bhante's being a little naive, you can be friends with anybody. But I think that's the power of practicing the Dharma, isn't it? It has that power to transcend these barriers to communication and connection. You know, barriers of potential barriers or differences in race or religion or status or class or caste or sexual orientation, or the colour of one's skin, or even language in the case of Dhardo Rimpoche and Bhante. So that openness to others, our openness to others, I think can only happen if we see each other in the round, if we see each other sharing the attributes of being human. You know, we understand each other's humanity, we see the strengths and we see the weaknesses, and we see each other's potential. You know, we always remain open to the value and the possibility of human communication. I think that's what Bhante in part is communicating there, that value and the depth of that, the power and the depth of real human communication. And I think that's probably only true if you're able, or if you're willing to see people more clearly, including yourself, more clearly, more truly, with what Bhante, I think, called an appreciative awareness on the basis of real appreciation. So I wanted to sort of talk just for 5 minutes or so on the value of appreciation. But what's all this got to do with living united? You might be asking yourself. Well, a year after Dhardo Rimpoche's death, there was a memorial. I remember being there, listening to the talk, the message of Dhardo Rimpoche, which is still another plug on Free Buddhist Audio, if you want to have a listen to that, because it is actually, the framework that's used is based on that motto of Bante's school. And when Bante talks about living united, cherish the Dharma, live united, radiate love. There could be a whole talk on how these three are interconnected, of course, couldn't there? When he talks about live united, he makes the point that Dhardo wasn't necessarily appealing to a more sort of, I suppose what you could say, an ordinary or mundane unity, a social cohesion, if you like. What he was pointing to was an appeal to live united in the Dharma, to root ourselves in the Dharma, to share the ideals of the Dharma, to relate off the basis of those ideals. And real true spiritual communication is of that nature. Two people standing side to side, looking out at that ideal, however far off that ideal might be. That's what really connects. We're alone, we know that. And but at the same time, standing side by side is a powerful expression of community and a powerful expression of Sangha. The possibility of communication. So he says that what Dhardo Rimpoche was really talking about was our individual and collective commitment to the three jewels. In fact, he goes further. He says, in order to live united, we need to live selflessly. We need to ultimately awaken to selflessness. And one of the things I think, coming back to appreciation in this respect, I think there's that wonderful story of Bante when he was in Kalimpong. He might have come out of meditation, but he was standing in front of this wonderful pine tree, this magnificent pine tree, and a friend of his, a Nepali, I think, or an Indian maybe, came up and Bante said to him, "Isn't that extraordinary? This wonderful, this beautiful pine tree." And his friend said, "Yes, that would make so many mounds," which is a unit of weight or mass, so many mounds of firewood, wouldn't it? So this idea of, Bante looking at it as a sort of an expression of profound beauty, and his friend looking at it in terms of firewood, says quite a lot. It's been a bit of a touchstone for me, I think I've realised over the years, these two modes of consciousness, the appreciative and the sort of utilitarian mode. If we transpose that to how we relate to people, that appreciative mode is something that we do in our tradition. If we think of rejoicing in merits, punya, anumodana, amodana is in a sense can be translated a bit like appreciation. Expressing one's gratitude to others. There's so many practices, cultivating sympathetic joy. It's all part of this appreciation, coming into real contact with other people, valuing and appreciating friendship. And in the end, seeing the Sangha for what it truly is, a wish-fulfilling jewel. As some of you have mentioned, it's been a support, hasn't it? It's been something that a lot of people have said during these times, during the lockdown. This is something that really has been profoundly important for people to keep connected. So just to finish, I think we could really reflect. Well, what is it I really appreciate? Well, not only about others, but about ourselves. Because we need to start, as usual, with ourselves. What do I really appreciate about myself? In relation to this topic, and of course others. And actually, some of you have tonight expressed elements of what you really appreciate about the Dharma when times are difficult, and that's quite moving. the year before Bente died, he was asking me, because I was taking dictation for something that he'd written, he asked me to get a copy of What is the Sangha? And he was using that as a resource for something he'd written. I can't remember exactly what. But as he put the book down, he just said to me, I wasn't quite expecting it, but he said to me, Paramatha, I don't think people really appreciate how radical our practice of Sangha is. And it wasn't what he said, there was that, but there was the way he said it. It just carried a certain weight. And I thought, I'm not going to even ask. I'm just going to use this as a sort of point of reflection, which of course I have over the years. Yeah. So cherish the Dharma, live united, and radiate love. Thank you.